From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
On the American agenda tonight, how do we know there really is a danger of global warming? As we reported from Rio this evening, with or without the U.S., Europe is going to put very strict limits on those gases that have the potential, at least, to trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, like a greenhouse. The Bush administration is refusing to do so because it says the case for global warming is not compelling enough to demand that American industries use less oil and gas. We asked our agenda reporter Ned Potter to explain what the evidence is.
These scientists are going diving to look for the greenhouse effect. Why look underwater? Because this coral reef skirting the Florida Keys is normally darkened by algae, but the water here has been warmer than normal over the last decade, forcing algae out and leaving some patches bleached.
I think the coral bleaching is clearly a signal of greenhouse warming.
Tundi Agardi is a biologist with the World Wildlife Fund.
This is not a local thing, this is a global thing. Regardless of whether corals are in proximity to big population centers, regardless of how they're managed, everywhere in the world we're seeing some bleaching.
There's fairly little scientific debate over whether global warming is an issue, but there are many questions about how soon, how severely, and in what ways we're most likely to feel it. So scientists are looking for what they call greenhouse signals, the first ecological changes that clearly can be linked to the warming. The list of possibilities keeps growing. At the University of Delaware, Dr. Zhou-Hai Yan has used satellite data to track a giant warm spot in the waters of the South Pacific. It has grown warmer and larger over the last decade, and Yan says it is probably a combination of regional weather patterns and greenhouse warming. At the University of Michigan, biologists have been documenting several plant and animal species as their habitats shift northward. One type of orchid, which dies in hot weather, could be found in this region 40 years ago, but has now retreated north almost 100 miles.
These species may be early warning indicators that tell us that natural ecosystems are beginning to respond to climate change.
The key phrase there is "may be," because for every sign that suggests greenhouse warming, there is another to cloud the picture. Clouds themselves are a question mark. In a greenhouse world, more clouds would form, but would they shield us from the sun's heat or trap more of it close to the Earth? Likewise, nobody can say how much additional heat the oceans would absorb, or how much we can count on trees to absorb greenhouse gases. Even smoke from volcanoes, power plants, and the burning of rainforests may act as a temporary sunshade. That leaves a lot of room for some people to say,
although we should be concerned with the issue, greenhouse warming is essentially a non-problem for all practical purposes.
S. Fred Singer is a scientist who often defends industries like coal and oil, which are less concerned about the climate than about drastic economic measures being proposed to protect it.
Anytime you try to limit the use of energy, you're really limiting economic growth.
At Rio, the U.S. has been mindful of that argument, trying to stop any agreement it says would cost American jobs. Environmentalists say that's short-sighted because a few prudent steps like energy efficiency can pay for themselves even if global warming never happens.
People often wonder, why should we do anything about the greenhouse effect until we're sure? Well, we're not sure before we buy insurance to protect our health. We often make operations on our body when one doctor says do and one says don't. Why is it that environmental scientists should be 99% sure?
Many of them say they may be sure within 10 years, but that meanwhile, more and more industrial gases will get into the atmosphere, unlikely to dissipate for decades. That's why researchers say it is important to watch now for the satellite readings and plant records and dying corals that may be telling us something. Ned Potter, ABC News, near Key West, Florida.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.